Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes a pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's fact. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to episode 172 of the Last Round Podcast. Thank you again for joining us. Jumping right back and straight into it. Fight reviews this past Saturday, the 9th of April, from the Super Arena in Saitama. I know I'm saying it wrong. Japan on DAZN. The return of Triple G, Gennady Golovkin, as he gets the 9th round TKO over Ryota Murata. Golovkin gains the WBA middleweight world titles and is now a unified champion again at 160 pounds. Not undisputed, unified. He's still, I think Charlo has a WBC belt. So that'd be a pretty excellent fight, put those two together. But give me your initial reaction on Gennady Golovkin's win, Mike.
I thought he started off a little bit slow. I don't know whether it just those old legs, that old body, needed a couple of rounds to kind of wake up and get loose. But then eventually towards the middle and then obviously towards the end, it looked like the old Triple G to a certain extent. Obviously, he got hit a little bit more than often than we were kind of used to seeing. But you could see that Murata was just getting worked down. And eventually I thought it was a good decision. By the corner because he got knocked down, but at the same time, I think they threw the towel in. So either way, it was going to be ended.
I was impressed enough. I do agree that you can tell, obviously, age at 40 years old. There is signs of it. It is catching up to him, but I think that he showed just enough that he's still one of the best fighters in that elite division, and he's still a threat. I think he showed it that he could still do it, because obviously this was like even though he doesn't really need it, this was kind of like a not an audition, but kind of like a table setter for a potential trilogy with Canelo, because obviously a lot of people were going to judge Gennady Golovkin based on this performance. I think he needed to do what he needed to do. I never expected him to go in there and dominate like he did like 6-7 years ago, or when he was on that streak of like 20 title defenses at 160 pounds. But he still has it. He still has that mean streak. Like, he's one of those fighters. He's always been one of the ones I admire in terms of the mean streak, kind of like Crawford. Like, when he has you hurt, and he's really trying to hurt you, you can see it in his face, those facial expressions that he makes when he just kind of puts all his power behind those punches. And he still has that. He looked great. For 40 years old, he looked great. You can tell he trains hard. He's always been very disciplined. And Murata got him some good shots. There was, you can tell he was trying to go for the body as well to Golovkin, because Golovkin has showed, especially when he fought, who was the Russian guy he fought a couple of years ago?
Derevyanchenko.
Didn't Derevyanchenko get him with a good body shot in that fight? That I remember, I think the referee kind of jumped in at the wrong moment, and everybody was complaining about, like, why did he jump in to stop that combination? After Derevyanchenko hit him with the body shot and looked like it hurt him. But you can tell Murata was trying to attack the body. Murata had especially the first 4 or maybe 5 rounds, Murata was doing okay. It was a good back and forth fight. I think after the fifth round or 6th round, Triple G, that's when he kind of took over. He really started to step on the gas. And then in the 9th round, that finishing shot, that last shot when he knocked him out and Murata's corner threw in the towel, he spun him around. He hit him so hard that he spun Murata around, and then Murata just fell to the floor, and then the towel comes in and the fight's over. Like just reiterating, I think Golovkin definitely had a good performance that really warrants a trilogy fight with Canelo Alvarez, which seems like we're going to get as long as Canelo is able to be victorious against Dimitri Bivol at the beginning of May. Because imagine if Golovkin lost. Not just imagine if he lost. Imagine if he won, but it was like a split decision or even a unanimous decision, but he didn't really show the qualities that he's had in the past, especially during the last 5-6 years. Imagine fans and boxing pundits and everything saying, "Oh, we don't want to see the trilogy fight." If Golovkin looked like that, well, why do we want to see him against Canelo Alvarez, who is in the prime of his career at the moment? But like I said, I think Golovkin did enough to warrant that trilogy fight and to really still make it interesting. I think Canelo is still a heavy favorite. I think Canelo is still the favorite, and I would still pick him. Let's see how the performance against Dimitri Bivol happens, and when we talk about it after that specific fight at the beginning of May. But I think Triple G still did enough to show that he has some type of chance in a third fight with Canelo Alvarez. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it'll be a good fight, and I'm sure all the people that keep talking about like, oh, they don't want to see it, Canelo's going to knock him out, they're going to pay to watch it like usual. If our memory serves correctly, has Triple G even been dropped?
You know what? I don't think he has, and I think I'm right on that. I think we're right. I don't think he has, right?
Canelo might beat him up and outbox him for 12 rounds, but I don't see Canelo knocking him out.
I think Canelo is going to try everything in his power to at least knock him down. And
I think after the second fight where there was obviously genuine beef between them, Triple G was calling him out as a cheat and stuff like that. And obviously there was all that talk about Canelo didn't want to give him a payday. He didn't want to, give him a third fight because he knows it's the biggest payday for Triple G after all the stuff that he said. So, yeah, I could see Canelo going in there with a little bit of spite, a little bit of something to prove, to really put like a final stamp on this trilogy.
I mean, I just think like, especially Canelo 4 or 5 years ago is a way different fighter than he is now. And Canelo, in the meantime, has fought in essentially bigger guys than Gennady Golovkin since then. Pretty much all bigger guys. Kovalev, Caleb Plant, Billy Joe Saunders. I mean, Billy Joe Saunders is kind of the same size, but Callum Smith, both height and all that stuff. So I think that kind of does give Canelo the advantage. And he's obviously younger by about maybe 8 or 9 years. So, but I still think I would still watch it as long as, the performance at the beginning of May for Canelo against Bivol, Canelo does his thing. I think he's still the favorite, even though I still think that's a very threatening fight against Bivol, because Bivol is the WBA light heavyweight world champion, and Bivol is still in his prime as well. So Bivol is a threat. But assuming Canelo wins, we see a September-ish fight between the third fight between Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez. I'm still interested. Some people say they don't want to see it. I think last year I didn't want to see it, but I think now, as of today, at least as of today, I still think I want to see it. What do you think?
No, I think everyone will watch it. It's one of those things where you say you're not going to. How many people said they're not going to watch Amir Khan, Kell Brook?
But do you want to see it though? Like, do you think it's necessary? That's what I'm asking.
Do I think it's necessary? The gap has made it not as necessary because, in my opinion, Triple G won the first, Canelo won the second. So the trilogy was needed, to get a definite winner. But did we need that like huge gap in between? They just obviously Canelo didn't want to give him a payday and stuff like that. And I'm sure Triple G kind of felt cheated out, and he was like, well, do I really want to do it again? Yeah, I mean, just to finish the trilogy, I guess. we didn't need the Wilder Tyson Fury trilogy, right? The third one was maybe, in some people's opinion, the best of the three.
Right. No, you're right. Yeah, exactly. That's how people look at it too as well. So I mean, do you think how likely it is that this third fight is the best of the three, like Fury Wilder was?
Maybe just because Triple G slowed a step. He still looked good, but he did slow a step. You're looking at Murata was out of the ring for a long time. Murata's nowhere near the same level as Canelo.
That's one thing that crossed my mind too. I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot to bring that up. That's true.
He has definitely slowed a step, so maybe he's going to be more available to be hit in this fight. So maybe we'll just get more of them both in the trenches, just throwing blows and seeing both of their incredible chins.
Well, yeah, I think that also helps. They both got incredible chins, so I think we're going to see some pretty heavy shots between both of them, and especially from Canelo to Triple G. And is Triple G going to go down? I think it's a higher chance that Triple G goes down from a Canelo shot than Canelo going down from a Triple G shot, right? At this point,
it's funny because Triple G is like, for the amount of knockouts he's had, he's not really like a big one punch guy, is he? It's kind of like he kind of beats you into submission. He's not really got that clinical.
Isn't that more dangerous? Isn't that more dangerous though? I mean, like what's really the difference?
I guess just it takes multiple shots over rounds, I guess. Whereas like someone like a Wilder is like he can just fall asleep for 1 second, half a second, and he just whacks you and you're out. So either way, I think roll it on September. I think Canelo will probably beat Bivol, and then we get to see the final one, probably in Las Vegas.
Do you think that? Let's just throw a hypothetical in there. If Bivol gets the upset, I'm assuming there's a rematch clause with Canelo. I'm assuming. Let's just say there's not. We're not saying there is or there isn't. I mean, I'm sure there is, but let's just say there's not. Do we see Bivol just say, okay, I'll fight Triple G at 168? Because Bivol has said he can make 168.
Probably not, because I think, Canelo is the biggest payday. So why would you go anywhere else?
Right, but why wouldn't you fight Triple G at 168? Triple G is also still a pretty decent payday.
I suppose, if you've got that much confidence in like, hey, I just beat Canelo, probably the best pound for pound boxer in the world. I'm then gonna go and beat Triple G, and then I'm gonna come back and face Canelo again. That's
three paydays.
Yeah, you've got some confidence in there. So yeah, if you can do that, if you believe you can do that, then go and do it. You're gonna go down as a legend, probably. If you beat Canelo and Triple G and then go back and fight Canelo again. Yeah, if that would be an unbelievable year for Bivol.
Who does Murata fight later this year now? Because Murata's still 36 years old. He's still, even though he got stopped, he got knocked out, he still has a name, especially after fighting Triple G and being a world champion and stuff at middleweight. Don't be surprised if PBC reaches out to him. It's like, oh, Charlo, let's put Charlo against him, or somebody like. Who is realistic for Murata? Murata gets an interim bout in between to get back in the winning column, but who's the next decent, bigger name that Murata faces?
Chris Eubank Jr.
You think so?
If they're trying to get him a big fight against someone like Triple G, stick Eubank Jr. in there with him, and
I think that
hope that he knocks him out in less than 9.
I think that dream's over. I think if Eubank Jr. is still holding out hope for a Triple G fight,
that's what the Sauerlands keeps. When you watch those interviews, though, there was
I don't think it's
when he first signed for them, it was like a gimme, and then a bigger fight, and then we're going to be in talks with Triple G. So
I don't think I think Triple G, regardless of win or lose in the Canelo trilogy, I think he retires.
This is the upcoming fight is the last one on his DAZN deal. Is that right?
Is it? I believe so. I think you're right.
It must be nearly there because it was a 6-fight deal, right? 5 or 6 fight deal for.
Yeah, and I mean that's why DAZN pushed so hard for this Canelo trilogy, because they're like, well, we got to make our money back on Triple G, because up until now, who has he fought under their deal?
Right. Exactly.
I mean,
Steve Rolls, Derevchenko.
Did he fight Jacobs, or was that on HBO? That's HBO, right?
That was HBO. That one where Jacobs kind of made his living off.
So the zone's hoping to get the return on investment just based on this trilogy fight. Like, let's see if we can get it back. But yeah, I think it's likely Triple G retires at the end of the Canelo trilogy fight, win or lose. I think Eubank Jr. I think the Sauerland brothers are trying to speak it into existence, but I think they're kind of wasting their time. I don't even think Triple G is thinking about that. I really don't. I don't, unless they offer him a ridiculous amount of money where he's just like, okay, can't pass that up. But I really don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. I think they're just trying to use the name for attention and some clout, but who knows? Moving on to also this past weekend from the Hangar in Costa Mesa, California, and Orange County, California on ESPN Plus, Michaela Mayer gets the 10-round unanimous decision win over Jennifer Hahn. This was for the IBF and WBO super featherweight titles. What'd you think about Mayer's performance?
Same as usual, to be honest with you. She's a good boxer, but it's just as soon as you turn it on and she wins a couple of rounds and she sets into that rhythm, it's going 10 rounds or whatever it's set for. And it's the same old thing, like there's definitely, a very, very low chance there's going to be a knockout. So you end up just kind of, without even thinking about it, you start playing on your phone or you're talking to whoever's in the room, about other stuff. There isn't that where you can't take your eyes off the TV, like when you're watching like a heavyweight fight or a Wilder fight or, something like that, because, there's never those blink and you miss it type moments because she hasn't got the power. And unfortunately, that's not what's going to sell boxing. Even Bob Arum said something about it, didn't he? Not long back about her fights or something like that. So that's her own promotion. So
I know that was crazy. But Bob Arum really does not care, even if it's his own fighters.
Yeah, that's just the problem at the minute we've got with women's fighting. And hopefully, it's going to evolve over the years, like we keep saying. And, we'll get some more people like Savannah Marshall and, even Tanisha Estrada. She doesn't necessarily knock people out, but she's got a very, flamboyant style. She's kind of like watching like a female Roy Jones Jr. So she is good to watch because she throws, great, good punches from crazy angles, and she'll start with a hook and stuff like that. She's very unorthodox. So she is good to watch. Yeah, that's just my problem with watching her, unfortunately, at the minute.
Well, she got the win, so it's better than getting the loss, and she can still progress forward with top rank behind her. Also on the card, Giovani Santillan gets the 7th round KO over Giovannas Barraza. This fight will save. We did speak to Giovani. Obviously, as you can see, he's a special guest of the week. This week, we did speak to him about this fight, and he broke it down for us and kind of, talked about his potential plans for the rest of the year. And he talked about Robert Garcia and all that stuff. So we'll leave that breakdown for his interview in a little later in the show. Also this past weekend from the Virgin Hotels in Las Vegas on Showtime, probably the fight of the weekend. Sebastian Fundora, the Towering Inferno. They used to say he was 6'7", but on the Showtime graphics, they were saying he was 6'5". So
WWE, like WWE.
WWE, they're throwing him in there. They're throwing him in there. Fundora gets the biggest win of his career to date as Lubin's corner. I believe they threw in the towel, right? Like his corner stopped the fight. This was for the WBC interim super welterweight title. It was a good back and forth fight. Lubin went down, and then Fundora went down. He actually took a knee. They were both going at it. It's crazy. It's always crazy to see how Fundora is just that he's so big for this weight, and he's so long, and he fights on the inside. Like he likes fighting on the inside. It's so crazy to see. It's entertaining to see from a boxing perspective. It's very, very eye-opening. But it's like somebody with his height and his reach. It's so crazy to see. I think I'll admit when I was wrong. I picked Lubin last week. I thought Lubin's experience, even though being shorter, I knew he was going to have to fight against the height and the reach, but I thought Lubin was going to take it.
But he doesn't use it, like you said. Like,
yeah,
you don't really have to. You have to fight against the height because he's taller,
right?
But the reach he doesn't really use.
Yeah, and I thought when Fundora took a knee, I thought, okay, I think Lubin's gonna. This is his pathway to win. But obviously Fundora survived and ended up getting the win later on in the fight. It was an exciting fight. Props to PBC and Showtime for putting those two together. When they announced that fight, I was like, oh, this is a great fight. And I think Fundora really proved that he belongs at 154 pounds. I think he's a threat. He's a threat to Tony Harrison. He's a threat to the 154 Charlo. You got Lara there too. You got Jaime Munguia. Even though that fight's probably not going to happen. But I think Fundora he's in there. After this win, I think all these world champions like Charlo and everybody at 154 and all the bigger names at 154 pounds, and even maybe Danny Garcia, who has been saying he wants to move up to 154. I think Fundora is there already. And I think they have to look out for him. Like, oh man, like he's one of those guys. Like, are they going to dodge him? Are they going to want to fight him? What do you think?
No, I think you kind of really nailed it. Really, the assessment of the fight. Fundora is just you can't really train for him, I guess, because he's so freaking tall for that weight, and then he's so unorthodox because you just don't really get guys at that weight, that size, that box the way that he does. And I think that's just what it is. He's like a crazy kind of puzzle to try to solve. And so far, obviously, no one's been able to solve it. The thing that I found amazing, and then I'm sure it's maybe just the fact that Lubin had so much heart and determination. He wasn't beating dudes up like that before. And this was his biggest fight. And that's one of the biggest beatings we've seen him done. Like the guys that he was, he should have been beating with ease. He wasn't doing that. He wasn't doing that to them. And I'm assuming it's just the fact that Lubin's never say die attitude is the reason that he left the ring looking the way that he did, I guess, or maybe he just bruises easily or something. But yeah, what a fight. What a great matchup, like you said. I think a lot of people were kind of picking it last week as like, hey, like it's not two huge names, but definitely do not miss this fight. A breakout performance definitely for Fundora. People are now going to be noticing him.
Oh, yeah.
All credit to Lubin. Unbelievable. Like just the heart and determination that he had.
I think Lubin is still
Dude, his two losses.
Yeah, Charlo and now Fundora.
But both of them are like unbelievable performance. Like,
yeah,
maybe not Charlo because it was so early, but the knockout was outrageous. And then this one, just all credit to Lubin. Like credit to Fundora.
As long as this fight didn't take too much out of him, because I mean, if you saw photos of him and video of him after the fight, he was pretty banged up.
Yeah.
He was pretty banged up, especially in his face. But assuming it didn't take too much out of him, Lubin is still right up there at the top of that division as well. Like people need to still watch out for Lubin, especially Charlo or
he's still young.
Yeah, he's still young. I think he's late 20s maybe. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Lubin, even though he lost, as long as, like I said, he didn't get too much taken out of him from this fight, Lubin still has a lot left to give at 154 pounds. So I'm still excited to see Lubin. I've been a fan of his even when he fought. I was there when he got knocked out by Charlo, but I was always saying, I was like, well, I thought he was too young to be put in with Charlo at that time. And, it looks like at that time it was right. But in the subsequent years up until this point, he really developed him into his own and really developed his skills. So, Lubin is still going to be there. He's still going to have a good career, assuming, no long-term injuries and stuff like that. And Fundora, like you said, biggest win of his career. And everybody's going to be dodging him now. They're really going to be dodging him.
Fundora Harrison next.
Well, I mean, we're just going to talk about Harrison. Harrison got the win also as a co-main event for this card. Tony Harrison got the unanimous decision win over Sergio Garcia. This was for the vacant WBC Super Silverweight or WBC Silver Super Welter. What a freaking word. ABC stuff here. Silver Super Welterweight title. Obviously, like we've seen a lot in boxing and in MMA as well. Both of these fights were 154 pounds. They were both for some type of WBC accolade, if you want to call it that. Is it possible we see Fondura Harrison later on this year now?
I would say so. We know, obviously, PBC likes to keep stuff in-house. They were both on the same card. Both had good victories. The WBC belt's kind of tied up at the minute. Why not? Why not roll it out? You know, they're dominating that weight category as they have done for the last few years. It's a good fight. I like both of them. Fundara's obviously, you know, people are now coming around to like how good he is to watch, and
we got to get him on, man. We got to try to get him on the show.
Well, yeah, he's local. He's got to swing by his gym, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Coachella Valley. Yeah, that'd be sweet. But yeah, definitely the fight of the weekend on Showtime. So credit to PBC and Showtime for putting that fight together. That was a great fight. Also, this past weekend, the return, Mike's favorite fighter in the world, from the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas, on DAZN. Ryan Garcia gets the unanimous decision win over 12 rounds over Emmanuel Tago. Tago was down in round 2, and it looked like Ryan Garcia was on his way to another knockout victory, but Tago survived and lasted the remainder of the 10 rounds and made it to a decision announcement. I know Ryan Garcia's been out of the ring for a while, over a year and a half, or over a year at least. But even with Eddie, when he was with Eddie Reynoso, this was his first fight, obviously, with Joe Goossen, under the tutelage of Joe Goossen. And his previous 5 fights were with Eddie Reynoso. And he was, I believe, 5-0 with 5 knockouts. Even under Eddie Reynoso, you can still see he was doing a lot of the stuff that he shouldn't be doing. He needed to work on his footwork. He was keeping his chin up and stuff like that. But I feel that he kind of regressed a little bit in this performance. Maybe because he's still trying to find, how to gel with Joe Goossen again. I know he's trained with him when he was younger, but he's trying to find, it is the first fight with a new trainer. So maybe it's that. But I feel, obviously, credit to him. He got the win. He did what he needed to do. It's better than getting the loss. He gets the win. He gets to move on and see where it goes. The train still keeps going. But I mean, is it kind of a loss that he didn't knock Tago out even when he had him hurt in the second round?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm sure it's hard. Obviously, when Tago, I think, saw the speed, tasted the power, and he was like, "I'm just running." But at the same time, Ryan should know how to cut a ring off, right?
Right.
So we would say that to everybody else, and I think Ryan is Ryan's worst enemy, from all the stuff that you hear and stuff like that. Eventually, one day it's going to click for Ryan and he's going to have to, listen to people. But from everything that you hear, like, he's probably going to regress, because I'm sure he's just going to train when he wants, do what he wants. And I'm sure everyone keeps saying, well, Joe Goossen won't accept that. He's an old school, trainer who doesn't take shit. He's got Ryan Garcia and Chris Arreola in camp. Two of the laziest people are with him. And he doesn't have a huge stable of fighters. I have absolutely no idea how much money he has. I mean, no idea. But if you've got a stable of only 2 people, then you can't really kick him out, can you? He needs paychecks coming from somewhere. I mean, you could be a multimillionaire for all I know, but I'm just going off what I can see, right? And that's the problem with Ryan. I don't think he'll ever really change. He's kind of got that Instagram style because all he does is cut videos and stuff like that. And those bags don't hit him back. So he's got into the habit of leaving his chin in the air. He still closes his eyes. He puts everything into punches, but, when they miss, he's going to be like a little spinning top and spin around because he's put absolutely everything behind it. He's very, very, very flat-footed still. I think they're just going to keep feeding him, small, easy, lower weight division people until, they can't, I guess, because the problem is he's already like ranked like 8th or something like that in the world. And like Togo was like 52nd or something like that, like really, really far down. And they're going to keep doing that until I guess they can't, and to the point where Golden Boy's like, we've paid this guy millions of dollars and he's fought a big, whole host of nobodies. And we know he doesn't sell tickets. The Aladome wasn't sold out at all. They only opened the lower bowl and not even the whole lower bowl.
And you know what? I was surprised when they said that the Alamo Dome, like that's a big arena.
They only sold about a quarter, like half of the lower bowl was open. That was it. And then when they tell everybody, like we always say all the time, he sold out the Honda Center. No, he didn't. He sold out the lower bowl of the Honda Center because that's all they opened up. And they were priced at like $20, $30 because it was a Friday. It was Valentine's Day. So I know, like, you can't deny that his views on DAZN are outrageous, because I think last time I checked it was like 6 million or something for that, the highlights for that fight. But he doesn't sell. People don't go to see him. They don't. It's not true.
Right. No, yeah, I think that's true. There hasn't been anything proven for fighters with social media, with a big social media presence, to translate that into viewers on the broadcast platform. That hasn't been proven yet, and it hasn't happened. And obviously it helps their brand and the promotion of the event. But it hasn't translated yet. It just really hasn't. It really hasn't. So and it's difficult to. They're still working at it. He's still young. Obviously, like I said, he was victorious, so it's better than having a loss. But yeah, like you said, like how I wonder how Golden Boy's looking at this. Like how I feel that going back to Luke Campbell fight, when that happened, I feel like Golden Boy, when Ryan Garcia got that win coming off the canvas and then stopping Campbell with that body shot, I feel like Golden Boy was like, okay, I think we can step it up with him. Because Campbell was a step up, gold medalist from the UK. That was a big step up. And he faced adversity and he came back and he knocked him out with a body shot. It was sweet. And I think after that, realistically, is how I would look at it. I think Golden Boy looked at it, okay, kid has heart. We can step it up. Maybe we can start looking into these bigger guys. And then obviously there was some stuff that happened and he took a break for mental health reasons and stuff like that. So they had to put him back in to kind of get him back into the rhythm. So I think he kind of regressed. And he left Canelo's camp. He left Canelo's camp and went to another trainer. I always wonder how that dynamic was going to play out, especially with Canelo and Eddie Reynoso not working with Golden Boy anymore. But Eddie Reynoso's training Golden Boy's biggest fighter now. I always wondered how that would play out. I was like, okay, either Ryan's going to try to leave Golden Boy or Ryan's going to leave Eddie Reynoso, which obviously is what happened. So I knew there was always some type of conclusion to that situation. But after a performance like that, he's not ready for the guys like Tank Davis or George Kambosos, Teofimo Lopez, those guys. He's just not. My guess is that Jojo Diaz, who's also a Golden Boy fighter, is the fight that they're going to look at for Ryan Garcia sometime later this year. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, after today's Twitter news, maybe not.
Oh, that's true. There was some Twitter news today, or not Twitter news, just some news in general in the boxing world. I believe there was a civil lawsuit filed against Jojo Diaz in California. It looks like for some allegations of some type of communication with a minor under 18 years of age. Those were the allegations or something. It looks like it was some type of civil suit. And then I think Jojo Diaz tweeted earlier today after that, something along the lines like, oh, look, they just want money or something like that, which we're assuming he was alluding to that. So, I mean, we'll see how that pans out. Hopefully, whatever it is, it gets sorted out. But as long as that gets sorted out and that doesn't become too crazy, whatever it is, I could see Golden Boy thinking about putting Ryan and Jojo in there later on this year, because they're not going to let Ryan cross the street anywhere else right now. Devin Haney and George Kambosos are tied up, especially if Haney wins. They're tied up for the next maybe 9 to 10 months. They're tied up, especially with the 3-fight deal that Haney has with Top Rank, and which is crazy, but you got to give him credit for taking that if he wanted to be undisputed. But so Kambosos and Haney are essentially tied up for the next several months. Tank Davis, I mean, Leonard Ellerby and PBC, Mayweather Promotions have said that they've reached out to Ryan's reportedly and made offers, and they've been denied or they haven't received a response. I think I know why. I think Golden Boy and Oscar De La Hoya know that Ryan's not nearly ready for anybody like Tank Davis. So I see maybe a Jojo Diaz next. Mercito Hesta, who fights under Golden Boy, is fighting this month as well at Fantasy Springs Casino. He also fights at lightweight, 135 pounds. If Hesta wins, especially if he wins in pretty decent fashion, maybe Golden Boy is going to look to put Ryan and Hesta together sometime later this year. That's probably why they're putting Hesta to fight on the same month to kind of keep their schedules together. I could see that happening. I'd be very surprised if it's a fighter outside of the Golden Boy stable. Like Tago's not signed to anybody. Is he a DeBella guy?
Yeah.
So he's a DeBella guy, but he's not a major promoter. So it's a little easier to work with the smaller guys like that. But I'd be surprised if Golden Boy puts Ryan against anybody from the other major promotions, Top Rank, PBC, Matchroom, stuff like that. Maybe Matchroom, maybe, but obviously they're most likely because they work within the zone. But my expectation is going to be a Golden Boy in-house fight, and it's either going to be Jojo or Mercito Hesta, who fights, I believe, April 19th or sometime next week, I believe. I mean, what do you think?
No, that's a good shout. Yeah, I think Mercito Hesta would be a good opponent, smaller. Again, kind of like what they like to do with Ryan, give him smaller opponents. Yeah, I think that's a really
and
good
Hesta
shout.
looks like he has a chin too.
Yeah, maybe he fought Linares, right? Remember that?
Right. Yeah, that was a pretty good fight too. Hesta had his moments.
No, he did. Yeah, he did really well in that fight. But yeah, I could definitely see that. They're on the kind of the same fight plan. He's only a couple of weeks behind. He fights, I think it's Thursday, April 21st on DAZN. So yeah, that's a really good choice of opponent, really, for another warm up, another get right for Ryan or whatever you want to call it.
Hey, we'll see. But he was victorious, which is the most important thing. So we'll see how his career progresses forward. Also on the card in the co-main event, Shane Mosley Jr. gets the majority decision win over King Gabriel Rosado. This was a pretty entertaining fight as well. Mosley Jr. really brought it. I thought Mosley Jr. had lost to Jason Quigley,
right?
Who Jason Quigley got outpointed by and stopped by Demetrius Andrade. I would say maybe arguably this is Mosley Jr.'s best performance of his career so far.
Massive jump. I couldn't believe it. He faced Jace Quigley, and I was like, okay, because I like Gabe Rosado. I was like, okay, nice little comeback fight for Gabe Rosado. Fights Shane Mosley. Probably beats him up, maybe stops him kind of late on, beats him down or something like that. Oh my God, Shane Mosley, get him drug tested. He jumped massively in terms of ability. He can't beat Jason Quigley and then goes in there and gives that performance against Gabe Rosado. Unbelievable.
That was crazy. Yeah.
That's a huge loss for Gabe. After running Munguia fairly close when we were there, he did have good moments, and then probably beating Daniel Jacobs, but wasn't giving it, and then going and losing to Shane Mosley Jr. That was a bad loss.
Mosley Jr. definitely positioned himself to get another decent fight after this. I mean, yeah. I know Rosado has a lot of losses, but Rosado's been in there. He's shown that he's not afraid to be in there with the biggest names in the sport in and around his division. And Mosley Jr. getting a win against Rosado, I'm sure Golden Boy is going to put him back out there and, see who they can put him against, right?
Yeah, that was a huge win for Mosley. Great win for him, and then bring him.
I mean, maybe Mosley Jr. is going to be one of those fighters who, like a Linares, you take some early losses, but the second wind of your career is what everybody remembers you for.
It clicked. It definitely clicked that night.
He looked good.
Whether it was just spending all that time with Freddie Roach in his corner. Oh, sorry, not Freddie Roach. The guy from Vegas, Bones Adams. whether it was
Right.
having Bone Adams in his corner or, whether it just finally clicked, everything had come together. But yeah, by far the biggest and best performance of his career.
Yeah, definitely crazy. Running off that card, Azat Hovhannissian gets the second round stoppage over Dagoberto Aguero, who takes the second loss of his career. Moving on, fight previews this upcoming Saturday, the 16th of April, from the Manchester Arena in Manchester on DAZN. Conor Benn, 20-0, goes up against Chris Van Heerden. This is for the WBA Continental Welterweight title. What do you think about this potential matchup?
Good choice, really, for Conor Benn. Chris Van Heerden hasn't really done a lot, has he? He fought Jaron Ennis, and apart from that, he's been pretty quiet over the last few years. I know he's got a decent record. He obviously 28-2-1, used to be the IBF champion of the world, lost that to Errol Spence many moons ago. But yeah, I think it's a good choice for him. Chris Van Heerden is not very heavy-handed or anything like that. So I think Conor Benn will probably be able to walk him down.
Also on the card, Chris Billam-Smith, 14-1, goes up against Tommy McCarthy, 18-3, for the EBU European Cruiserweight title. What do you think about this matchup?
Good matchup. It's a rematch for one. Was it at the Garden Fights or something like that? I can't remember which one it was, but it's a rematch. Close fight the first time. Chris Billam-Smith, I think, maybe wins it again. Tommy McCarthy, for me, blows hot and cold. I don't know whether it's just choices of opponents or something, but sometimes he looks like really, 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 really good. Then other times he just kind of just doesn't throw a lot, looks a little bit tentative. So maybe it's just a confidence thing. So I would go with Chris Billam-Smith, maybe stopping him this time.
Rounding off this card, Alicia Baumgardner, who has the WBC and IBO super featherweight titles, I believe, goes up against Edith Soledad Matisse, 17-11-1. What do you think about this matchup?
Baumgardner beats her.
Should be right. It should be an expected win.
Yeah, it should be, really. I think they had an original opponent who dropped out, and Matisse took it on fairly short notice. I think, Baumgardner, like I said, when she faced Terry Harper, she's just so heavy-handed for the women's division. I think she's going to be a bit of a menace. I think she's going to probably hold the titles there for quite some time.
Also, this upcoming weekend, likely the fight of the weekend, from the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, on, is it Showtime pay-per-view or Fox pay-per-view?
I know, I forgot to check. I think it's Fox.
Is it?
I think so.
Might be. I mean, Spence has fought on Fox a lot the last couple fights. Errol Spence Jr., 27-0, goes up against Yordenis Ugas, 27-4. This is a unification matchup for the WBC, WBA, and IBF welterweight world titles. Obviously, Ugas got this opportunity after defeating Manny Pacquiao in his last fight, and now going after essentially the king of the welterweight division in Errol Spence Jr. I've seen a couple different analysis and stuff, a couple different people, in the boxing world talking about this fight and saying Ugas, is a live dog, which I do believe he is to an extent, but I'm telling you, Spence always figures out a way to make it happen. He always figured out, even after the car crash, which almost killed him, I thought, oh man, how is he going to be the same after that? And he comes back and still performs really, really well. It's like it never affected him.
2 car crashes.
Right. It was, yeah, that's right. 2 car crashes. So, I mean, I don't know, man. Spence, as of this point, hasn't really shown me anything that he's really regressed. And even with all the stuff that he's been through with these car crashes and all that stuff, he hasn't really shown it to me. And he's fought all the killers so far. He's fought all the killers. And I know some people say Terrence Crawford is the best welterweight in the world, and blah blah blah, and this and that. But which Crawford Spence is still probably the fight to make as of this point, at least. We'll see after Saturday, but. I mean, how can you ignore the resume of Errol Spence Jr. and all the wins that he has? He's literally beaten the best welterweights in the world in this era so far, right? I mean,
yeah, he definitely has. You're definitely right there. And like you say, from what we've seen so far, and that's all we can judge it on, it doesn't seem like those car crashes have, luckily affected him. I think, he had the help from the hand of God that night, that the car crash that was, kind of shown around the world, the way that the car flipped, that, yeah, he had something on him that night, which, helped save him. And hopefully, I think everybody wants to see him beat Ugas. And then finally, hopefully in the summer or autumn, we get Errol Spence against Terence Crawford for all the belts. Ugas has obviously, had a purple patch towards the end of his career. He probably beat Sean Porter that first time and should have got the WBC belt that time. And then obviously he went and beat Manny Pacquiao in a great performance there. So taking nothing away from him, I just think Errol Spence is really just another level. He is good, but we just need to see him in there with Terence Crawford at last. And now that he's promotional free, hopefully Crawford does it. And we don't have to see it, next summer or even the summer after.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I think this fight against Ugas is definitely going to still be tough. Ugas has proven, to have that Cuban slick style still, which he's always had. I'd be surprised if Ugas gets stopped. I'd be surprised if any of them get stopped, or even knocked down. I'm not expecting any knockdowns. I'm expecting a really good fight, technical fight, with some decent punches landed, some good connects. But I'm expecting this to go to a 12-round decision. I'd probably go with a unanimous decision for Errol Spence. What do you think?
Yeah, I could see that. I think it may start kind of slowly, a little bit tentative, and then I think eventually it'll heat up. And I could actually see Spence stopping him late. I think it's Spence.
Maybe there's always a threat of that, but I just think Ugas is so slippery with that Cuban style. I don't think I wouldn't put my money on him letting that happen.
He's a little bit more attacking than the usual. Like if you compare him to like the usual Cuban style that guys talk about, like a Rigondeaux, he's definitely a lot more positive than that typical kind of you good slick, but you fall asleep watching it. You guys is a little bit more positive, which I think plays hopefully into Errol Spence. He may catch him coming in, and then hopefully we get some kind of stoppage, and then Spence stands there and says, WWE promotion style, like Crawford, let's go.
I can see Spence doing that. Something like that.
I've got 3. You've got the last one. Let's do it. Summer, autumn, whatever, Christmas Day. Just give me that fight.
But everybody's already said. I think Top Rank has even said, like, it's the money that they're requiring Spence and Crawford for that fight isn't worth it yet because they don't bring in the buys.
10, 12 million probably combined purse, I would imagine, around there.
Combined purse? No, I think they'd want more than that.
That's what he's getting at Top Rank, right? 5, 6 million.
Yeah, but I think they're each at least going to want like at least 10 million a piece. At least they're both going to want that.
Don't take a guarantee then. Bet on yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take the pay-per-view.
Like Haney. Look at Haney. Look at what Haney's doing.
Right.
Yeah, same thing. But either way, I'm looking forward to this fight. I think it should be the fight of the weekend. It's great to see a unification matchup. Like I said, Spence has been in there with the killers. I give him the edge because of his resume and the opponents that he's been in there with. But you can't count out Ugas, but I'm twisting my arm here. I'm going with Spence unanimous decision. Also on the card, Razab, is it Butiev?
Butiev, I think.
Butiev, 14-0 goes up against El Manta Stanionis for the WBA welterweight world title. This is the WBA interim bout or something? I mean, the WBA belt's on the line for the Spence fight.
Yeah, the Spence one's the super.
And come on. There's still... What happened to taking away these interim and super and regular? And I think they just said that just to kind of kill the fire a little bit. But is there really plans for it? Who knows? Also on the card, Cody Crowley, 20-0, goes up against Josecito Lopez, 38-8. This should be a pretty decent scrap, right?
Yeah, it should be a good fight. Cody Crowley's in some decent fights. I think he's Canadian, but he's lived in Las Vegas for the majority of his career, fighting out of Mayweather's gym.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good little matchup. Also, Isaac Cruz returns after his narrow defeat to Gervonta Tank Davis in the Staples Center in Los Angeles as he goes up against the recycled Yuriokis Gamboa. Gamboa just keeps getting opportunities, right? He keeps going back in there in PBC cards. They keep putting him there.
But look at it. They keep giving him like killer prospects, poor guy.
Yeah. I think his name is shot. Like, you can't really say like, oh, I have a win over Gamboa and he fought this guy, he fought that guy. I think that's over. That's you can't really use that anymore. He's just there to be used as a punching bag, but whatever. Isaac Cruz should be the favorite here, should get the win, and on to bigger and better things after that, which I'm sure PBC is planning for him. Rounding out the card, Jose Valenzuela against Francisco Vargas. Is this the same Francisco Vargas?
You're Bandito. Kidding. Yeah.
You're kidding. When's the last time we saw him?
Yeah, he was on like a Mexican card like a while back.
Wow, that's insane. El Bandito, Francisco Vargas. He's back, huh? I didn't know that. Yeah, first time I saw this. This is crazy. Man. Well, I'm definitely going to try to catch that fight. That should be interesting. Also on the card, Brandon Lee, 24-0, goes up against Zachary Ochoa, 21-2. This should be a pretty decent scrap too, right?
That's a really good undercard fight, that one, yeah. Really good. To be fair, the undercard in general,
it's pretty solid.
If you've got nothing on Saturday night, definitely turn it on and watch that all the way through, because Brandon Lee, Zachary Ochoa is not going 12 rounds. Valenzuela, Francisco Vargas isn't going 12 rounds. I'd be surprised if Cruz Gamboa did. Cody Crawley, Josecito Lopez should catch fire, maybe go 12 rounds, but it'll be a good scrap. Then Butiev, I think, is strong, powerful, trains out of Joe Diaz's gym, knockout gym, right? That's pretty much all they go for. So I don't see that going 12 rounds. So it's a really good,
solid undercard. It really is.
Really good. And it's on. I did check. It's on Showtime pay-per-view.
Oh, okay, Showtime pay-per-view. We were wrong. It wasn't Fox. It was Showtime. Definitely should be the card of the weekend. Writing off this week's episode of The Last Round, news and notes. Recent news that was announced today by multiple governments around the world, including the U.S. government. Daniel Kinahan has been added to, I believe, what was it? He's been added to. Financial sanctions have been put on him and some other alleged members of the organized crime group in terms of not being able to do business with them, kind of stopping their businesses and stuff like that. And then also, I guess, would you call it a bounty? A $5 million bounty for information that leads to the arrest of Daniel Kinahan and others within the alleged organized crime group. That was a big deal. That was a big deal. I know there's a big issue in the boxing community that a lot of reporters don't talk about that, just based on maybe they don't want to lose access, or some of these fighters who are advised by Kinahan or MTK are associated with their platforms in one way or another. But this is huge news. And it did look like a lot of people started to cover it, because you just can't ignore something like that with somebody, regardless of, obviously he hasn't been convicted in court and all that, but regardless if it's true or not, whatever it is, everybody, deserves their day in court. That's huge news. That is huge news because, the U.S. government, especially, you would think from a legal perspective, they're not going to go and do something like that if they don't feel confident in the evidence that they have and the reasoning behind it. So, that's a very interesting development. Obviously, we've had Al Dawson of The Insider on here who's talked about this and who beats a lot of that drum consistently for that type of information. I'm sure we'll have him on soon to kind of give his opinion on the recent developments. But yeah, it's big news, man. It's big news. What'd you think about it when you saw it?
I mean, you could see it was coming. I think it was just the fact that they needed to get probably enough solid information to really put anything out there. So it's just going to be interesting to see what happens in the world of boxing, because I think he had his finger in so many pies and he had so much money that he was, probably controlling a lot of stuff that we probably didn't even know about. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, the amount of people that are saying good things about him, because unfortunately money makes the world go around, right? And it sounds like he was lining a lot of pockets.
So if I can read it, the U.S. ambassador to Ireland said at a news conference this week in Dublin, Ireland, that the Department of Treasury in the United States is offering a reward of $5 million for information that will lead to the financial destruction of the Kinahan crime gang or the arrest and conviction of its leaders. That's huge, man. That's huge. I know in the last month or so, there's a lot of recent developments that have happened in regards to these allegations. This is huge. And then I think I forgot who got. I think it might have been Lance Pugmire, the reporter Lance Pugmire, who got Bob Arum, who got a quote from Bob Arum, and I think Bob Arum had said, they're going to look to cut ties with him or MTK or something, which is big because not too long ago Bob Arum was giving the guy praises. So, like you said, money makes the world go round. So that's what happens, right? Yep. So, but we'll see that. But this is it's definitely huge news. It's definitely huge news that needs to be covered. And we'll see as the days and months come forward what else happens. But now that his name has been thrown out there, especially acknowledged in a bigger way by the U.S. government, we could see some bigger things happening. During the remainder of the year. Also, Fight Hub TV, Marcos Villegas has been on the show before, was able to catch up with former world champion Joseph Diaz Jr. over the weekend to discuss his upcoming plans. He was asked about potentially fighting Ryan, but Diaz had said that he was looking to move back down in weight for a potential fight against Joan O'Carroll. Obviously, we talked about earlier, a couple minutes ago, about he has like a civil lawsuit that he's now dealing with. But what do you think about a potential fight with Joan O'Carroll?
I could see that. It'd be easy to make. Joan O'Carroll's been jumping up on appearing on those Probellum cards over in Dubai. So with Joseph Diaz's link to MTK and Probellum essentially being the same thing.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. That wouldn't seem a hard fight to make, I guess. Maybe even over in Dubai. But we'll see now with, maybe MTK and Probellum's walls crumbling down around them. Maybe.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Time will tell. And like you say, with those court papers being posted on Twitter today, we'll have to see what's going to happen with Joseph Diaz. They may just keep him on the back burner till that all gets sorted out.
Yeah, crazy to see how all these developments occurring right before our eyes. And then it was also reported that Fury versus White will be $70 in the USA on ESPN Plus on April 23rd. I don't think it's going to perform well over here just because it's over there.
2 p.m. 2 p.m.
Yeah, it'll be at 2 p.m. here, but I mean, obviously the financial success that they're looking for is going to be in the UK, like the primary meat of it. I don't think I'd be surprised if they get a significant amount of buys over here in the US at 2 p.m. on that day. I mean, it's better than 5 a.m. how Triple G fought this past weekend, but for $70 in the United States, nope. And at 2 p.m., nope. It's not going to work, right?
100,000.
No, not even.
Really? Less?
No, I don't even think it's going to be 100,000. That's a success in the US.
100,000?
I think so.
Okay.
For him fighting in the UK in prime time over there, or whatever it is, not prime time. Okay. That's 100,000 is a success in the US and pay-per-view buys. People paying $70. That's a success over here.
Not even.
I would think. But I don't even think they're not even gonna get close to that. $70 at a 2 p.m. start time? No, you can't do that.
Baseball season in full swing.
Exactly. So, you can't. You had to charge maybe $30, maybe, but you have to pay these guys. You have to pay them. So what are they gonna do? They're like, oh, okay, well, let's just upcharge it. But yeah, it is what it is. But hopefully Fury comes back to the United States soon to fight over here. But we'll see. What happens going there. But obviously, thank you for listening to this week's episode of The Last Round. We are now going to throw it to our interview of the week with a welterweight fighter who is co-promoted by Thompson's Boxing Promotions and Top Rank Incorporated, Giovani Santillan. He's based out of the San Diego, California area, and recently started training with Robert Garcia at the Robert Garcia Boxing Academy in Riverside, California. I believe he's 29-0 currently. He just came off of a recent victory in Costa Mesa, California on a Top Rank card on ESPN that he also dives into and he breaks down for us. And he said he's ready for a world title shot, that he stays in ring shape all year long, just in case he gets that call like, hey, we need somebody to step in or a substitute, late replacement. He said he's ready. He sounded confident. And we hope you enjoy this week's episode with Giovani Santillan.
And now it's time for the last round interview of the week.
Welterweight contender Giovani Santillan, El Gallo de Oro, joins us this week on the last round. Thank you for joining us, Giovani.
Oh, no, thank you guys for having me.
Appreciate it. We appreciate it. So for fans who might not be familiar, especially our UK listeners across the pond, for them who might not be familiar with your name, currently you're 29-0 and you're currently co-promoted. If I say anything wrong, obviously just correct me. You're co-promoted by Thompson Boxing Promotions and Top Rank. Let's start at the beginning of your career, or maybe your fighting experience. When did you know, or what's the earliest memory you have of boxing? Is it watching it with like the family or anything like that? Like, when did you know, like, oh, I kind of want to get into this?
Yeah, I don't remember. I know as a kid, there'd be boxing fights and all that on TV, at home, with my dad. But I never really paid attention to it much until I started boxing. And I started boxing at the age of 8. And, it was just something my dad he decided to take my brother and I to the gym one day, just because he kind of got tired of coming home. He used to work in construction. He got tired of coming home and just watching us like doing nothing, just chilling at home after going to school. And he was thinking like, I got to get these guys to do some type of activity, And I think I tried like soccer. We tried karate, and then one day he decided to take us to the boxing gym, and that was just a couple of blocks out from where I used to live, a different part of San Diego. And from there it was just immediately just became something for me, like an everyday thing. 5 days a week I was at the gym with my dad, and my brother kind of, he was a little younger, so he kind of fell out of it. But right away got my attention, and it's something that as soon as I started doing, I just wanted to get better, and I wanted to learn, and I stuck with it. And then I got to the point where I had my first amateur fight. And then from there, I kind of, continued fighting in the amateurs. And I can't remember exactly at what point, but sometime in elementary school, probably 11, that I felt like I knew already, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I love to do. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep doing it. I just couldn't see myself stopping. And then, cause that always felt like, well, if I stop, what am I going to do? It just became my whole life, since I was a little kid. And we kept going. And I turned pro at 20 years old, but it was fighting amateur all the way up until then.
How was getting punched in the face for the first time? Because I'm sure, people who go to boxing gyms, you kind of look at people walk through the door and you're kind of like, okay, I think that guy's going to last like 2 or 3 weeks, then he'll get punched in the face and he won't come back.
I don't remember the first time. I mean, I had my first fight since I was 8 years old, so I don't remember it specifically. You just kind of go in there and you just do what you've been training to do, for months. And it's just 1-2, 1-2, hook, 1-2, 1-2, jab, jab, 1-2, hook, hook. And so, as soon as I remember my first sparring session, the bell rings and we go, and it's just go pop, pop, pop. You're just doing what you're being taught. I don't know. I mean, the first time I ever got hit, clean in the nose. I was probably like 11, when I got hit with a real good one. That's like, oh, okay, that's what it feels like to get hit like hard. So yeah, that's a little wake up call. It lets you know, okay, I got to work on my defense a little more.
I read whilst I was doing the homework for this interview that you had over 80 amateur fights, and you had some rigorous training camps in Cuba and Mexico.
Yeah, about 80 fights between here in the U.S. and in Mexico. But yeah, I went to Cuba just once for a few weeks, and this was part of when I was like 15, so I was only 15 years old at that time. And but that was a great experience. When you compete in Mexico, I was representing at that time the only spot that they had for some of us that were coming from the U.S. to join the Baja California team. That state. I had to represent Tecate. It's a city in Baja California, and yeah, once you make the state team, they have these Cuban coaches. Mexico, I guess they hire Cuban coaches from Cuba. They come over and they stay and live in Mexico, and they train the fighters alongside, the regular coaches. But yeah, every weekend we'd have like a group training where everybody represented the state. And I think right before you go to nationals in that tournament, they send us to Cuba, for like a quick little training camp out there. And so that was cool because they got some of the highest level amateur fighters.
How was that? Because I know, like, playing soccer in the UK, when you go to these camps, you kind of like, okay, this is where I stand. You can kind of see like, oh, I'm pretty good, or I'm pretty shit.
I felt good. Yeah. I remember the first day we were going, and after that first round, I was like, oh, okay, I got to step it up. But sometimes when I feel like when I'm in there with better opposition, I rise to that, so it helps me level up. And so that experience was great for me because it really helped me. Even with just a couple weeks out there, a few weeks that we spent, I feel like I came out of there like different. When I came back to the U.S., I felt like I came back with so much.
How was it training over in Cuba? Because they obviously have a world-renowned, like, Olympic amateurs team.
It was cool. I mean, just to see the routines, how they do their training, it was different than anything I was used to. It's not just the bag work, and we didn't really do any mitt work. It was just a lot of like sparring, sparring drills basically that we would do. Not just it wasn't always just spar and go. It was these drills that we would work on. They drill a lot.
Gio, do you go by Gio or is it Giovani?
Both. I think most of my friends probably call me Gio. Most people that know me, yeah, they'll probably Gio, but both, either one.
Okay, just asking because sometimes people are like, "Oh no, I don't go by this or I don't go by that." Like they get insulted by it, so we want to know before, just in case.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no one.
So, what is your earliest memory of maybe being a fan of a fighter as you were growing up? Because you said you started at 8. Then you mentioned being punched at 11, where that's the earliest memory you have of feeling like a really straight punch to your face. And then you mentioned your amateur experience in Mexico, and you went to Cuba and Baja California and all that stuff. But growing up, like, who was that first fighter on TV, whether it was like HBO, Showtime, that really captured your attention and you were just like, all right, that's my guy?
Yeah, it was Marquez for sure. When he had that first fight with Pacquiao, that was the one that was like, I was just amazed at how he kept getting up in that first round, got his nose broken, and then came back and fought to a draw, which most people, I think, if it wasn't for those knockdowns, he would have won that fight. So he was the first fighter that I looked at like man, I like the way that guy fights. He's smart, a lot of heart too, and goes in there and yeah, one of my favorite fighters for sure. And
Have you ever met him?
No, never met him.
Well, I'm sure you'll meet him eventually. He's still around the game. He'll pop up. So, who else, besides, I mean, is it safe to say that Marquez was your favorite fighter growing up?
I think so for sure. I used to like watching also Oscar De La Hoya fight and some of his fights in the past for sure. And every once in a while I'll still go look back at some of his fights, like with that he had with Fernando Vargas. That fight was great. I like to watch that fight a lot. I probably watched it more than once.
What about your dad? Because you said your dad was obviously a big fan, or is, was a big fan of the sport. Who were some of his favorite fighters? Was it Chavez? Because like my dad was a big Chavez guy. I mean, but what about yours?
From my dad, I mean, I've never really heard him say, "Man, that guy's my favorite fighter." He's just the guy who watches everybody. He watches everybody and tries to get little things from everybody, and he can find a positive and negative out of all the fighters that you see. Yeah,
I read, Gio, that he kind of took up boxing with you, and whilst becoming your trainer, he kind of like learned alongside you, but he kind of knew obviously to let you go and work with other coaches, so you get that variation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So my dad at first, he wasn't my first trainer because he didn't know about boxing like that. He didn't start taking over my training till I was about 13 years old. But we always had other people as well. So it wasn't just him. He always felt like it'd be good to have another pair of eyes, and people with more experience. But yeah, at 13 is when he started taking over my training more.
So your dad, because obviously, that the father-son combination in boxing happens. It's very, it's going to keep happening historically and as we move into the future. But there's some dads some fathers with, they don't want to let other trainers essentially come in and train their sons, which it's fine. If it works for them, it works for them. But there's some fathers, like yours, for example, like we just talked about, that are open to letting other type of assistance from other trainers, more well-established trainers come into that. How do you view that situation? Like, or how does your dad view it in terms of having that dynamic for the fighter, which happens to be his son?
Yeah, I mean, for my dad, that was, he's always looking in my best interest, which I think most fathers are. At the end of the day, you want the best for your son, and boxing is a dangerous sport. And so you definitely want them to be prepared as best as possible. And sometimes as a dad, you might think, with you, I can prepare my son the best, or you might think, what, I know my limitations, or I know where I've taken them already up to what point. And I think from this point on, we probably need someone with more experience, and I think that was the case with my dad. My dad always 100% has my back. But I think we got to that point where he felt like, okay, we need someone with more experience to come in and see, okay, what can we do better? And that was the decision to go with Robert Garcia.
That's what my next question was going to be. So where did you reach out to Robert? Like, how did the link up happen?
Yeah, my dad reached out to Robert, and, Robert and them, they're really humble people, their whole family. And, my dad called them, and they picked up right away. Robert picked up right away. And I said, yeah, bring him over, so it just happened. I forgot when we made the call, but it was maybe like on a Thursday. And then by that Monday, I was over there at the gym. So really quick.
For you, Gio, do you have to, when you go to a new coach or you try out a new coach, do you have to have like a certain link up? Does it have to click right away?
I mean, I think so. It has to make sense for sure. But at the same time, I think you have to be open always, because you might be used to doing things a certain way, and you've always done it this way and it's worked for you. But obviously you see sometimes if you go with someone else, it's because you feel like you need some change. So I think if you go with someone else and there is a difference in their training style and all, you have to be open. I think you have to give it a real shot, in order to really find out where it can take you.
You've got some pretty good sparring in that gym. You've got Josecito Lopez, Jose Ramirez, obviously Mikey Garcia himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the thing about there is they also always have other trainers bringing in their fighters. So anytime you need new sparring partners, there's always people coming in as well.
I think I'm right in saying that you actually train at the boxing club in San Diego. You actually train people. Has that helped you kind of learn the art of boxing as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started doing that the same year that I turned pro. I started doing that, coaching and doing like one-on-one sessions and classes. And it was more doing the one-on-one sessions where I saw that had to like relearn things, when you're a kid, you just soak it all in and you see someone do it. They tell you, sorry about that.
It's okay.
They tell you to do something a certain way. And you kind of just do it, you just soak it in, when you're a little kid. So once I turned 20 and I started teaching, I had to like kind of re-teach myself, okay, how do I throw my jab this? Or how can I get someone else to do it like that, And so, you learn a lot from teaching as well,
I read in an article as well that you also sparred Canelo, Tim Bradley, Floyd Mayweather.
Not Canelo, but Tim Bradley and Floyd. Yeah.
How was that? Yeah. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So Floyd, that was back in 2015. And it was when he fought with Manny Pacquiao.
Oh, wow.
Took a chance and drove up to Vegas. We drove all the way up there from San Diego because we heard there might be an opportunity to be able to be one of his sparring partners. And for me, it was just all about the experience, and seeing what it's like to watch him train, one of the best. And so I was excited about that. But I remember we drove up there and they didn't give us a chance to spar that day. They said, you know what, come back Monday. And I was like, oh, man, I drove all the way up here for nothing. We just drive right back. But I really wanted to, I knew that if I got a chance to get in there with them, that they would want to keep me there. So they said, come back Monday and then we'll see. And, if you can hang in there with Floyd, then we'll keep you. If not, then, we're not going to need you. And so we came back Monday. They gave us a shot, and right away they were like, okay, we're going to get you a room and everything. Because, I feel like I really held my own against Floyd. And just to see that, I mean, obviously it's different, when you're sparring compared to a fight. Totally different game. But just to be able to hang in there with him, I felt really confident. It really gave me a confidence boost of what I can do.
What's so good about Floyd? When you're in there, what are some of the things that we don't see from the outside?
Well, he's a really smart guy, and I think it's all about thinking. You notice with him, it's just the mind game too. And when you're there, everybody's against you. It's just you, everybody's against you, and everybody's almost like they're playing a real mind game because people that are watching, they're just trying to kind of get in your head. Any little thing he does, you'll land a shot, and they're right away cheering. But if you throw a shot and you miss, they're like, talking about how his defense is. So it was a good experience for me to be out there. But for him as a fighter, what I liked a lot is, in training camp, when you're getting ready for a fight, you have good days, you have bad days, and sometimes those bad days can get to you and you're like, but I got a fight coming up and I'm not looking good in sparring. How am I going to do my fight? And what I learned with him is, it didn't matter how he was doing in sparring, not every day was a good day for him. But he'd get right back to work like nothing happened, unfazed. And, you saw him the night of the fight, he shows up and he does his thing. So, that mental strength that he has to just, push past those bad days, and keep working just as hard. Never look discouraged.
Well, another thing that I read whilst doing the homework for this was, do you actually work with a psychologist like once or twice a week to go through, things like that?
Yeah. I started doing that last year, around the same time that we started working with Robert. I started doing that too. And I think it's been great work for me to kind of, work on all of that stuff, also visualization and things like that.
Where did that come from? Is that something that Robert suggested, or was it just like a coincidence that you started that at the same time?
Kind of a coincidence that I started at the same time, but it's someone that I met at the gym that I work at. And he just offered to help me. He said, if I ever want to meet with him. And so I was curious about it, and we met up and started going from there. And it's been great.
Can you give us like an example of what you do? Because I'm sure people that are listening are probably, curious, want us to dig a little deeper.
Yeah. Well, it's just a lot of talking about like visualization and that mental strength and strategies and just going over all these things, and but yeah, we just have these conversations, about once or twice a week, and I try to do it as much as possible. Even if I don't have a fight coming up, we meet up.
So it's something that you're looking to continue, at least for the foreseeable future, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So going back to the Floyd sparring, was he able to talk to you after, even, maybe towards the end of the training camp, or when it was time, when your time was up? Like, were you able to have any type of conversation with him where he kind of gave you advice?
Yeah. So the last week of training camp, he had just came up to me and my dad, and he had told, he said a lot of good things, like, appreciated whoever brought me to the camp, because he felt like he really got a lot out of our sparring sessions, and just grateful that we were able to be there. And yeah, just things like, he saw that he was saying he felt like I would be world champion someday and things like that. So that was great to hear from him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially, you were training him for the biggest fight essentially ever in boxing, at least financially.
Yeah.
But we talked about Tim Bradley, that you mentioned that you sparred with Tim Bradley. How was that?
Yeah, so that was actually the following year. So 2015 with Floyd Mayweather, and 2016 when Tim fought Pacquiao, his final fight. That's when I started training with Tim Bradley for about 4 or 5 weeks. We were sparring with him. So totally different style in camp. So it was cool to see the way one guy does it, and then see a different type of camp. And kind of shows you everybody has different ways. There's different methods, to this. There's not just one way. But yeah, also a great learning experience to get in there with him. And what I liked a lot is watching the way he worked with Teddy Atlas as well. Because after our sparring sessions, what was cool is they would record them. We would get to, they would allow me to, and my dad, to in the back room to watch the film on our sparring session. So I would get a chance to see how Teddy Atlas would break down the sparring session. A 3-minute round, we would take like 10, 12 minutes just to get through those 3 minutes of the round, because he'd keep pausing, rewinding, look at that, and then pause, rewind. You see how he did that? You see how he moved over here, you moved over there. So it was cool to see him break that down and kind of help me watch, whenever I watch film on my opponents, kind of be able to pay attention to certain things that I saw he would pay attention to.
Is Teddy Atlas, because obviously, people know who Teddy Atlas is, and, he's given us a lot of content in terms of on TV and all that stuff over the years. But in a training session like that, obviously we don't expect him to be as animated as he is, especially on television or on his podcast. But do you still see that little bit come out during training like that?
Yeah, I think that's him. Yeah, that's him. Maybe not as much like that, but yeah, but he was a nice guy, and it was cool for them to allow us to be, in the back watching the film. You would think that they don't want the sparring partners there, but they would allow me to see. And so I would see how he would also kind of pick apart what I'm doing, during the sparring session.
Yeah, that's really good feedback to have, especially from somebody like Teddy Atlas. Going back to the Robert Garcia, you mentioned that, your dad gave him a call on that Thursday. He picked up right away, and then by that Monday, you were in the gym in Riverside. What was that first day like at the Robert Garcia Boxing Academy?
Yeah, well, that first day, I was a little nervous for sure. I think Robert's a legend, legendary trainer. And they told me, okay, you're going to be sparring with Jose Ramirez, because he was getting ready to fight Josh Taylor. So I was up in Josh Taylor Southpaw, so I was helping him out for that fight. So yeah, I was a little nervous, to be there, and I hadn't fought in about almost a year. So, that ring rust a little bit. And I hadn't had at that point good sparring in like a few months, So I was like, all right, nervous because you want to do well, and you want to make sure, okay, in front of these guys, I got to look good, They're allowing me to be in the training camp. I got to make sure that, I belong here. But yeah, it felt good. I felt like I did really well in the sparring, and it just worked out.
What's do you remember any initial conversations with Robert? Maybe on that first or second day, like, what did he tell you? Like, hey, welcome to the team.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do. Like, what's going on?
for sure that first week, the thing that stuck with me the most is how he was telling me, you know, because most of my training career it's just been kind of just me and by myself, you know, not really much of a team. A little bit, you know, here and there throughout the years, but there are many years where just being me and my dad. And but being there, it's, you know, team. And even though we're all training and fighting for our own fight, you know, in the ring you're alone, but we're also working together, but we're also competing against each other. You know, you want to be the best. So one of the things that stuck with me is he told me, you know, here in the gym, you're gonna see which fighters really work hard, which fighters, you know, half-ass their work, and who's really wanting to be the best, you know, and you want to try to be the best. And it doesn't matter who you're sparring in here, who you're up against, how good they are, or the name that they got, you can beat them. You just got to believe that you can, you know. So your job is to try to be the best here in the gym.
So you sparred Jose Ramirez. Did you got to spar Mikey as well?
Yeah, Mikey too.
How was the Mikey sparring?
Good. Felt good with Mikey, you know, and you know, he's a multiple division world champion. So being in there with him is good, you know, a lot to learn from him, and also you know, kind of let me know, okay, where do I stand, you know, too.
So do you see, like, you know, now being in that gym, you know, for a cool minute, do you see, obviously every fighter has like their own twerks and their own little style, but obviously if you train with one trainer, you're going to get some qualities from that trainer. Do you see being in the ring, even if it is for sparring with guys like, you know, Mikey or Jose or any of the other fighters that Robert Garcia trains, do you see like, oh, okay, there's one of the qualities that they got from Robert, like, you know, they all have like kind of this similar thing going on?
Yeah, I mean, I would say everybody, you know, you learn to dig to the body for sure. Something I felt like I was able to do a lot in my last fight. And it came from, you know, working with all these guys. You know, they're working the head, go down to the body, back upstairs. So I would say that's one thing at least that sticks out, you know. But everybody definitely brings their own style to the table. They're at the gym. Everybody fights a little bit different for sure.
Before we kind of jump into, you know, you had a fight this past weekend in Costa Mesa in California, a top ranked card on ESPN. How did you get picked up by Thompson's boxing promotions?
My manager, you know, may he rest in peace, passed away a few years ago, but yeah, he had me fighting on a Thompson boxing card, and it just went from there. You know, they picked me up after that.
So did you talk to Ken Thompson? Like, is he the, you know, the main guy that you usually talk to, since it's, you know, it's his promotion?
I see him, you know, sometimes during the fights I would see him, mostly, you know, during the fights, but it's usually Alex that you would, yeah.
So, but at that point, were you in discussions or any, you know, trying to get any other promoters' attention before Thompson's?
Before Thompson, yeah, we did fight on a Golden Boy card, a top rank card, but I think at that time what made most sense, you know, after talking with my manager that I had at the time, was to go with Thompson Boxing.
And then Top Rank, you know, recently, not too long ago, kind of attached themselves to you in a co-promotional deal here. How did that come about? Did Thompson, you know, advise you like, hey, Top Rank reached out to us, they want to help promote you?
Well, I ended up, you know, I was probably maybe like 2 years without a manager. And then we started working with split team management with Dave McWater, who's my current manager. And yeah, that's what he advised us, you know, and he talked to Top Rank and then made it happen.
So did you go to Las Vegas for a meeting with Top Rank?
No, my manager handled all that. Yeah, Dave.
Oh, okay. So you didn't actually go and like meet with Bob or something right there in Vegas?
No, he handled all that. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. And my first fight with them was during COVID too.
How was that? How was that fighting during COVID?
As far as like no crowd and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in there in the middle of the fight, I don't think it even makes a difference, to be honest. Sometimes it can a little bit, but you know, you're so focused on the fight and the opponent in front of you that, you know, you zone out. push all that aside and just focus on that because it's just you and him.
Yeah, the reason I ask because we've asked other fighters that, and they've admitted, so, it's kind of weird because I get the energy from the crowd, especially when I get a good shot in. Like I use that for my adrenaline, but for somebody like you saying that, like, no, like I'm in there, and once I'm in the zone, I kind of tune everything out, right?
Yeah,
that's interesting. So, going back to this past weekend, you fought at the hangar in Costa Mesa, California. You got the 7th round KO over Giovani Barraza. Can you kind of break down your performance for us?
Yeah. So for this fight, I watched a little bit of film on him, and I feel like pushing him back, having him be on his heels and me being the aggressor would be the right game plan for me. And for my 2 fights before this, that's what I did. I pressed forward. I was, the aggressor, being aggressive and on the offensive most of the time. And so I felt like, okay, I got what it takes, and I knew what I could do in the fight. I know what I should do in order to get the win.
What kind of rating would you give yourself, Gio?
I'm always hard on myself. Maybe like a, B- just because I feel like I know what I can do. I know what I still want to show. That's the thing. That's why I'm hard on myself, because I know what I still want to show people, and the types of performances that I still know that I can give. I don't think anybody's seen the best of me yet.
I know you don't like to really call people out, but what type of names would you like to look at next? Where are we looking?
I mean, ultimately the goal is for that world title, to get a world title shot. But right now, the welterweight division is a little bit tricky. I guess I think all the world titles are over PBC right now. So it's tricky, but whatever fight will get me closer to that would be best for me.
Who are some, like, who do you think is the best welterweight in the world right now? Besides yourself, you don't have to include yourself.
I would say it's got to be Crawford. I think it's got to be Crawford. Either him or Errol Spence. I mean, we'll see what happens this weekend coming up.
Mm-hmm. Before we wanted to get your take on that too, the Spence Ugas fight. But before we do that, what did Robert think about your performance this past weekend?
I think they were happy with my performance. Robert's dad Eduardo was there, and he also been in the game for so long, and he's there in the gym every day too, and always watching all of us train, spar. So he knows what's going on, and he was very happy himself on my performance. So they were happy with the performance.
Is Eduardo a little bit more old school? Does he kind of keep you guys slacking off and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Without revealing too much, what kind of stuff did he tell you following your performance this past weekend? Big G, that's what they call him.
Yeah. Oh, after the fight, he was happy with the way I was attacking, defending, on top of him. He was just telling me, you're going to be a world champ someday. Just keep working hard.
So you talked about how you think Terence Crawford is the best welterweight in the world currently. Arguably, the next 2 best welterweights are fighting this weekend in Errol Spence and Yordenis Ugas. Who do you got in that fight, and how do you think it finishes?
Right now, I really don't know who's going to take that fight. Probably a couple of years ago, I probably would have said Errol Spence for sure. But I think Ugas looked really good against Pacquiao. He's looked good against southpaws before. I think he knows exactly, what to do against the southpaw. He knows how to use that jab, that right hand, his distance, and how to land certain shots in the southpaw. So I think it's going to be interesting to watch, how it all plays out. But I know for sure there's going to be a lot of action. I think they're just going to stick mostly in the center of the ring and fight it out.
What about in terms of the other welterweights right now who are kind of on that cusp of world title shots? We got Virgil Ortiz and Jaron Boots Ennis. Did you get a chance to spar with Ortiz, or was he already out of the gym there?
Yeah. We just had one sparring session, like 4 rounds, only one time. Yeah, because I was at the end of my camp for my fight in June last year. And so I just did one session with him, and then he was just getting started, I think, for Kavaluskas. I think that's how I pronounce it.
Yeah,
Mean
Machine. Yeah, Mean Machine. Yeah.
Yeah, he started for camp for that fight. So yeah, we just barely crossed paths right there.
What do you remember about that session with him? Those 4 rounds.
Good. I felt like it was even sparring session, to be honest. So that could be a possibility in the future too.
No, yeah, that's why I wanted to bring him up, because you guys are all coming up in essentially the same manner, and now you're training with the trainer that he had for a long time, so somebody who knows how he fights. But who do you think gets a world title first between him and Boots Ennis?
I don't know. It all depends. Boxing is tricky, and the moves and chess pieces, how they move. So it really depends. I think they're both good fighters, though, for sure.
And what about for yourself? Obviously, the goal for any fighter, but like you mentioned, your goal is to get to that world title. Is there like a plan? I mean, obviously there's a plan, especially with somebody at top rank in Thompson, they're strategic about it. We understand. But for you, when do you think, how many more fights would you say, like, before you think you're ready to jump in there with a world champion at 147 pounds?
I think I'm ready. I feel like I'm ready now, to be honest. I feel like I'm in my prime now. I feel like it's all coming together where I feel physically my best, but also experience-wise, I feel like I'm at my highest right now. So I feel like the time is now. So it could be this year, it could be early next year, but I think I'm ready now.
Do you stay in ring shape all year long?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's key. That's important. You got to be ready at all times, and always training, because you never know when an opportunity can come up. That's for one, but also just because you don't want to end a fight, get out of shape, and then you got to get back into shape for the next one. It's a lot, too much work right there. Instead of just, fight ends, ease back into training, but always maintain, always stay in shape. Always want to stay at about 80%. And, you should always be trying to work on, because in between fights, that's when you can improve. Sometimes when you got a fight already, a month out, 2 months out, you're focused on that fight, and it's not a time to learn new things. It's a time to just sharpen up. So, but in between, when you got more time, that's the time where when you can practice new things, learn new things, improve on past things.
So when are we looking to see you back in the ring? Like, is there a tentative schedule?
I think hopefully early summer, maybe June, July. Today's Tuesday. Yesterday, I was already back, in the gym exercising. Today, put the gloves back on, hitting the bag. So that's my thing. I'm not going to let myself get out of shape. I want to stay in shape and just keep the ball rolling. And once I get a confirmation on a date, for fighting.
How did you celebrate the win, Gio?
Oh, I just went to go eat some wings. A couple of friends that came up to come watch my fight, but that was it. I took it easy because, like I said, in my head, I want to fight already, hopefully soon in the summer. So it's not time to party or anything like that. It's time to just keep my head down and keep working.
You go spicy on the wings?
I did. After, when you're cutting weight, what you're craving is just flavor, so there's something spicy, salty. So yeah, definitely.
Sweet, man. Sweet. Well, we appreciate your valuable time this week, Giovani. Congratulations on your recent victory on the latest top ranked card here in Costa Mesa, California. Obviously, like you said, you're hoping to come back maybe early summer, maybe June or July. How many times are you looking to fight this year?
At least 3. I want to be in the ring at least 3 times. I mean, if I can do 4, I'll do 4. If the opportunity presents itself, I'll take it.
Sweet. Well, like I said, we appreciate your valuable time. Before we let you go ahead and plug your social media. Obviously the gym that you work at. Anything you got that you want, the boxing listeners to know. Go ahead, man. The floor is yours.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me today. Great interview. Appreciate you guys. But yeah, my Instagram, just look my name up, Giovani Santillan, and you'll find me. But besides, that's pretty much it. Just my Instagram's pretty much the only place to follow me right now.
Sweet. You got to jump on Twitter, man. Boxing Twitter. There's a big community on there.
Don't do it.
Yeah, on that. I'm a social media guy, but that's something I definitely want to work on because I know it's huge right now. It's important.
Too many haters on there, Gio. Too many haters.
Just tune them out. Just tune them out, man. Well, it's like Jamel Herring. Jamel Herring interacts with a lot of people, not just like fans, but like a lot of boxing media people, like with us and others. And people appreciate him for that. I mean, obviously, we're not telling you to do that, but boxing Twitter, it's good to have a presence. So when you do decide to jump on there, make sure to let us know so we can push you out and publish you to our followers as well.
Oh, definitely. Thank you.
All right, Giovani Santillan, we appreciate it. And like I said, good luck in the rest of the year. And I'm sure you'll be back here on the last round in the months ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is the Last Round Podcast.